Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're covering Activity 5 and we're just kind of picking up where we left off from Activity 4. Now Vanessa is a financial planner. She specializes in retirement savings and she's going to be helping Josephine, who we met in Activity 4. As you recall, Josephine wants to retire in 50 years with $1 million in savings. So Vanessa advises her to find an account that earned at least the current rate of inflation. Now in Activity 4, we used an old rate of inflation. Today we're going to update it to the current rate of inflation. As of January 2024, the current rate of inflation is 3.1%. All right, so we're going to use this information to complete the table below. On the first line we have FV, which is future value. And we know that's $1 million, because that's what she wants in 50 years. So FV is $1 million. T is the time, which in this case is going to be 50 years. I is the interest rate, and that is the current rate of inflation, which is 3.1. But be careful, they want it as a decimal this time. So 3.1, move the decimal point to the left 2 places, or you can just divide 3.1 by 100 and you get 0.031. And the next line is PV, which is our present value or principal, and that is unknown. So I put a question mark there. And then N is the number of compounding periods per year. In this case, it's once per year, so N would be 1. Now, Vanessa uses a TVM calculator. And we're actually going to be using our TI-84 calculators. I'm going to show you later on how to go into the TVM application on the calculator so we can solve these much faster. So in question number 2, we're just going to look at the values that the TVM solver would have and just fill in those values. So identify the values in Josephine's situation for each variable that the TVM calculator uses. All right, on the first line is N, which represents the number of compounding periods between the time of investment and the time of retirement. Well, in this case, what you would do is you would multiply the number of compounding periods per year, which in this case is 1, times the number of years. That's 1 times 50. And I always tell my students to just go ahead and type it in as is. All right, number of compounding periods per year times number of years, 1 times 50 is what you would type in. Next line, I is the interest rate, in this case as a percent, and that was the current rate of inflation, which is 3.1. PV is our present value. That's going to be unknown. And when it's unknown, you always just put a 0 in there. And I have a question mark to remind me that this is what we're solving for later. So again, if it's unknown, put a 0. All right, payments. We're actually not making any payments this time. So go ahead and put 0 there. In other words, we're not making any regular payments, right? We're just making a one-time deposit. All right. FV is the future value, which we know. That is $1 million. The PY and the CY, that's payments per year or compounding per year. And that's just going to be 1 in this case. So both of those are 1s. And by the way, the PY and the CY are always the same. It's compounding periods per year, which in this case is 1. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 4, but today in this problem it's 1. Okay. Now, number 3, use the TVM calculator to determine the present value of the investment required to meet Josephine's retirement goal. All right, so let's go back here and let's just look at what we have here in the table. All right, this is everything we're going to be typing in to our TVM calculator or TVM app. So we're just going to enter all of this in the calculator on the TI-84. All right, so what you'll do is press the apps button right here, apps button, and then you'll go to number 1, finance. So you can just select the 1 button, or you can press enter. I'm just going to hit the 1 button there. And then line 1 again is TVM solver. That's what we want. So select the 1 button or enter. All right, and as you can see, we have the same values here that we have on our paper over here. So on the end line, you're going to type in 1 times 50. All right, so it's 1 times 50. Press enter. All right, on the second line is our interest rate, I, which is 3.1. Let's type that in. 3.1. Press enter. All right, next line is present value. This is unknown. This is actually what we're solving for, so just leave that as 0. All right, and if it's not 0, you would just type in a 0 there. All right, payment is 0 because we're not making any payments. So that's the next line. Keep that at 0, and then press enter again. And then FV is the future value, which we know is 1 million. So let's type in 1 million. Okay, we got 1 million there. And then PY and CY in this case are both 1s. And then also one important detail is at the end right here, the payment, we're going to always leave that as end, because we're assuming that we're making payments at the end of a cycle. So just leave that as end. Okay, let's do it. Now, to solve for the present value, what you do is you simply use your up arrow this time to go up to the PV line, because the present value is what we are trying to find in this problem. So again, use your up arrow to go back to the PV line. You see it's kind of highlighted there, it's blinking. All right, and then you simply press the green alpha button. All right, the green alpha, and then the enter button here. And when you press that, it gives you a number here. It changes that 0 to negative 217,303. That's $217,000. Sorry, $217,303.51. That's going to be our present value. The reason why it's negative is because it's leaving your pocket and you're putting it into a bank account. All right? The fact that it's leaving your pocket is why it's negative. All right, so then we're putting that in and carrying that value over to our paper. That's our present value, $217,303.51. Okay, continuing with number 4, use the TVM calculator to answer the following questions for some of Vanessa's other clients. Number 4, Reginald wants to find the future value of an investment of $6,000 that earns 6.25% compounded quarterly for 35 years. All right, so N is the number of compounding periods, and so to do that, you would multiply the number of compounding periods per year, which is 4. And why is it 4? Because we're compounding quarterly. And remember, quarterly means 4 times a year. So we're doing it 4 times a year for 35 years. So that's 4 times 35 would give us the number of compounding periods. So back over on the calculator, use your arrow to go to the end line and type in 4 times 35. Here we go. 4 times 35. There it is. Press enter and go to the next line. Interest rate. All right. In this case, the interest rate is 6.25%. 6.25% here. Let's go ahead and type it in there. That is 6.25. All right, and that is as a percent. No need to move the decimal. All right, hit enter, go to the next line, and that's the present value. And in this case, present value is negative 6,000. That's because we know the amount she's going to invest at the beginning. $6,000 is leaving her pocket, going into the bank account. So that's negative 6,000. So on the TVM solver, let's hit clear out the old value there. And let's go ahead and type in negative 6,000. There we go. All right. Payments. Are we making regular payments? No, we're not. So we're going to leave that as 0. So over on the calculator, we press enter and leave that payment as 0. All right. For the future value, we don't know what it is. We're trying to find it. So we put 0 for future value. So let's go back to the calculator here and hit your down arrow, press clear, type in 0 there for future value. Now we don't know what the future value is. We're actually going to be solving for it later, so we're going to come back to this line later. All right, let's go to the PY and the CY, payments per year or compounding per year. In this case, they are 4 because we're compounding quarterly, which is 4 times a year. So both PY and CY are 4. Let's go back to the calculator and change the PY and CY lines to 4s. All right. And then again, we want to make sure the last line says end, and end is highlighted. All right, we're ready to solve. What are we solving for? We're trying to find the future value. So use your up arrow to go back to the FV line and then press alpha, the green alpha, followed by the enter button, and you have your value. That's going to be the future value in 35 years. That's $52,580.51, and that is what we would put on our paper. All right, number 5. Hilda wants to have $10,000 in 10 years after investing in an account that earns 3.6% compounded monthly. All right, let's just fill in all of the table information before we go to the calculator. So N is the number of compounding periods, total number of compounding periods, okay? Now this is 10 years and we're compounding monthly. Monthly means 12 times a year for 10 years. So you multiply 12 times 10. All right, that's what we're going to put in our calculator later. Next line is the interest rate, which is 3.6%. And that is as a percent, so do not move the decimal, 3.6. Present value. All right, the present value is unknown. We're going to try to solve for this later. So just put 0 for now, and we'll come back and solve for it later. Payment, we're not making any payments, so that is 0. Future value, well, we know the future value. Hilda wants $10,000 in 10 years, so we put 10,000 there. PYCY is the compounding monthly, and we know there's 12 months in a year, so that's both going to be 12. All right, now let's put all of this in the calculator. Go back up to the first line in, and we're going to type in 12 times 10. All right, so 12 times 10. Okay, and then go down to the next line. Interest rate is 3.6, so type in 3.6. Go to the next line. Present value is, we're going to put 0 there and then come back and solve for it later. So put 0. Go to the next line. Payment, 0. Go to the next line. Future value, we know it's 10,000. So let's type that in. All right, there's our 10,000. And then the last two lines, PY, CY, are both 12. So go to the next line, put 12. Next line, put 12. And again, we keep the payment as end. All right, what are we solving for? Present value. So let's go back up to the PV line. And when you're up to the PV line, press the alpha button and then the enter button at the bottom. And it gives you the new value here. So that tells us that if we want $10,000 10 years from now, we would have to put in this much money in our savings account. That's $6,980.52. And we just transfer that over to our paper here. All right, we've got one more to do, and this is Juan. Juan wants to invest $1,250 in an account that earns 2.34% interest. It's compounded monthly. How many years would it take for the account to have a value of $5,000? Okay, so this is a little bit different. It's asking how many years would it take. All right, so how are we going to solve this? First line is in number of compounding periods. So that's actually what's going to be a question mark here. The number of compounding periods, well, we know we're compounding monthly, so that's 12 times a year, times t, which is the number of years. That's what we don't know. That's what we're going to be solving for. So in our TVM calculator, we're actually going to put a 0 right here. Okay, so we'll come back to that. All right, interest rate is 2.34%. So we write that there. Present value, we know that we are going to deposit $1,250 in an account. So that's leaving your pocket, going into your bank account. So that's going to be negative $1,250. Payments, we're not making any regular payments, so that's 0. Future value, we know we want $5,000 in the future. PYCY, well, because we're compounding monthly, those are both going to be 12. Okay, so let's go to the calculator and let's type in the information that we have. Now on the first line in, we know it's 12 times something, but we don't know what that is. So remember, we're just going to put in a 0 this time for n, all right? Because we don't know how many years. We have to come back and solve for it. All right, interest rate is 2.34, so type that in. All right, go down to the next line. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Let me go back to the n, put 0, n is 0. Interest rate, 2.34. Just making my corrections here. All right, present value. Present value is negative $1,250. Again, because it's leaving your pocket, that's why it's negative. So let's just go ahead and type that in, negative $1,250. And payments, we're not making any monthly payments, so keep that at 0. Future value is $5,000. Type that in. And the PY and CY are both 12s, which we already have. And the last line is end again. All right, now we need to go back up. Remember, we don't know how many years it is, and that's why we put 0 in for n. So we're going to go up to the n, go back up to the n. You see it's blinking there. And then go to alpha, the alpha button, and then the enter button. All right, and there we have this 711.61. 711.61. So what that's telling us is that there's about 711 compounding periods, 711.61 compounding periods, and that is equal to 12 times some number t, which is the number of years. So now we're solving for the number of years, so we would have to actually divide the 711.61 by 12. Okay, so again, that's dividing 711.61 divided by 12 gives us t equals 59.3, and that is the number of years approximately that it would take for the value to reach $5,000. Okay, hope this video was helpful. Again, reach out to your teacher if you need further assistance.